Oh, girl, yes. And I think definitely, I know you have, I know we all have, right? And in hindsight, right, when you're out of it, you're like, okay, it was a learning lesson. It sucks. It doesn't feel good. And yes, I have a few big moments. One was when I was literally running three companies at the same time, not by intention, but it's because I had my first one and then I moved on, but I was still owning it. And then I had my second one and then the third one started to skyrocket and take off. And I was still, the first two were still under my ownership. And I actually made it work somehow because I was really only focused day to day on one company. But I hated that feeling. I was stretched too thin. I didn't like the feeling of not being able to give 100% in every aspect that I was doing. You know how some of the biggest opportunities of your life come from someone you know, whether that was personal or professionally, somebody opened a door for you, someone introduced you to someone. We connect people in those ways. We create those relationships and then we accelerate them. And the way that we do that is by introducing you to the right person and creating the environment that is ripe for building a relationship, not for a transactional, going right to selling like a lot of people do in networking.
Welcome to Make It Ambitious, the podcast for bold thinkers, doers, and leaders who refuse to play it small. I am your host, Vic Moser, strategist, creative entrepreneur, and conversation junkie. Each episode, I sit down with industry disruptors, creative founders, and corporate game changers to discuss the strategies, mindsets, and turning points that have shaped their journeys. Whether you're building your personal brand, scaling your business, rewriting your career story, or dreaming up your next big thing, this space is your permission slip to go all in. Because playing small was never the plan.
When I started the dance school, Victoria, I was more aligned towards kids and teens, semi-adults, but not full-grown women like me. Just on a whim, I started an adults class for women who were my age, who had kids, who's kind of settled in life and etc. And I felt that a lot of women who came did not have a sense of accomplishment, although they were very accomplished. They were very educated. They'd done a fantastic job with their families, but the validation levels were very low. The empowerment was very low. The self-love was very low. And when these women spent an hour in front of in front of the mirror, sweating it out in my dance class, from the time they came to the time they ended, I could see the glow up.
I mean, my dad was an awesome business leader, and I guess he found that out early on because he went and worked in corporate America a couple of times and just felt like, he didn't like being siloed. Like, this is your job. Just do this, and someone else will do this, and someone else will do this. He liked being able to go across and look at everything that was going on. And I thought that was really powerful that he wanted to be a part of different things. That's why he chose to be an entrepreneur and kind of the CEO of all of his little companies that he had. And for me, I've been Victoria, I've been a startup founder, gone to a big corporation, been at a startup, been to a big corporation, been a startup. And so that's kind of been my career because there's really good things about being in an enterprise company. And there's really great things about being an entrepreneur.
Great question, Victoria. I think when I came to Florida, I saw a market need. That was number one. They did not have, at least where I was living, we did not have a Bollywood dance studio. And I've always been a proponent of culture and, how can I show and share what I've learned growing up in India as a kid? So that was the number one premise for me to start this studio. And as I was saying, the joy that it gave me, it was not about the money. Most of the years that I taught dance, I was in the red, to be very honest. But it became like a passion project. It became my way of giving back, whether it was culture, teamwork, sharing what I feel good about with other women and kids and teenagers and men.
Well, it's interesting is tell me the facts and I'll believe, but tell me a story and it will live in my heart forever. So if I'm making a decision about how to help a partner out or, how do I help this big customer understand what's happening or how do I explain to my employees a new vision? I always think of, okay, I can give them all these facts and they'll believe, but it's not going to really stick with them unless I can tell them the story behind it. So what's the narrative? What's the story that goes with the numbers, with the why? And so for me, that's one of my guiding principles. Well, the biggest thing for me is when I stop learning. So if I'm in a role and I'm not learning anymore, I just end up doing kind of the same things over and over and over again. It gets boring, and I don't feel like I'm adding as much when I'm not learning. And so in a big corporation, when that happened, I would look for other areas where I could grow things or change things up. And so when a company says, oh no, we like what you're doing, just kind of do more of the same. That's for me when I know it's time for me to go, because I don't really want to do more of the same. Somebody else can come in and do more of the same. I want to grow and grow and grow and really experiment with new different things. That's why I love what's happening today in AI. You know, with AI, everything's changing. VCs, the way we market, the way we code, like everything is changing. And not only changing, it's changing like really, really fast.
So I have 10 trends for the future of networking, which I've identified and I'm releasing. So thank you for reading the newsletter. And the objective is to show people what's coming in AI and how it's going to affect how we build relationships professionally. So how it's going to affect how we network and get ahead, quite frankly. And so this trend is I believe you're talking about trend number 4, which is remote by default, in person by design, meaning the world is doing more and more remote meetings. Even though people are going back to the office, we're still doing a lot more Zooms than we used to. And so the default is like, hey, it's a lot quicker to have a bunch of calls during the day than to have even one lunch or 1 or 2 in-person meetings with travel time and everything. It just takes, I would certainly prefer, 3 Zooms in the hour that it takes, an hour and a half that it might take to have a lunch, maybe add on another half an hour for travel.
There were a couple of moments in my career when I decided that something had to give, something had to change. I think the first was when I was very young, and I don't think I was conscious of it, but I always was a very driven person, whether it was presenting myself at school, whether it was schoolwork or being on stage or I was a house captain, so representing my team. So that leadership, getting on stage, being confident was kind of a decision that I made consciously. And of course, my parents and my teachers are very supportive, but that was something that kind of made me change. Otherwise, I was a very shy, introverted kind of person. But as soon as I got on stage, I was a different person. So that kind of changed the game a little bit for me. And much later in life, when I finished my engineering and I was working in India, an opportunity presented itself for me to work in the US temporarily.
Once you get to a certain level, executives don't want to be going to networking events. I mean, they're just not going to go because for a few reasons. One, they're extremely busy. Whether they say it or not explicitly, they don't want to take a chance going to an event where there's a lot of people who are in earlier stages of their career. Because once an executive gets to the very top, they have a lot of experience, they have a lot of wisdom. It's not that they don't want to keep learning, but it's that a lot of times when they go into places that it's an uneven balance, they get either bombarded with sales pitches or questions of all different flavors, and it might not be comfortable for them. And they might also feel like they are outnumbered. For example, there's some networking events where they try to bring founders and investors. Well, you know what happens there.